Good evening, Graham.
Well,
Good evening,
Charles,
Anthony. Hottest day of the year so far. Thoroughly unpleasant. Can it please end?
is this two big egos and a large weather front or a small weather front?
Any weather front is just. Can it just go
Yeah,
away?
no, I'm looking forward to go to Edinburgh because Edinburgh right now is about 15 degrees cooler than
I know.
England.
I know.
First time
And
I've ever been so excited about going somewhere much cooler. When this
look,
when this podcast is broadcast
yes,
next week, we'll have already been up to Edinburgh and come back. So I feel like actually reviewing Edinburgh Film Festival and the Fringe right now before we go without having seen a single thing. How do you feel about that, Charles?
I think it's entirely feasible, Graham.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was very good. There you go.
Yeah,
Review
plenty of
finished.
choice, and it's good. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're waiting for
Rather
anything.
expensive though. Yeah.
We're waiting for anything controversial, which usually happens now. Trying to ban people. That was what
Well,
last
how
year.
about an alleged murderer doing a stand-up comic show about how hard life's been since then?
Yeah, that one's got plenty of attention, hasn't it? Yeah, that's yeah, Amanda
Hmm.
Knox.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't box it. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Foxy.
Coming
Yeah.
next, springtime for Hitler in Germany.
Well, we're hoping for maybe a more peaceful time than that, but we look forward to reflecting on it. We're going to be hopefully recording while we're there this weekend. It's a shorter visit than normal, but it's always great to go up, and we're so grateful the festival is still there, and that also we get access to going to that. So we're looking forward to
Especially the
talking about
film
it while
festival,
we're
which
there.
is
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly. So, Graham, our first topic for this evening is well, the Odyssey has been obviously doing the heavy duty 25 screenings a day through most of the summer. And I guess most people will have seen this film by now, just short of 3 hours. And you're pointing out, you're finding some shortcomings in a long story. I mean, I think when we previously discussed it, we were pointing out it's somewhat ridiculous that people who are experts feel the need to go on about what is essentially a myth and therefore is going to have
Yeah.
different interpretations. However, you have found some shortcomings in this long
Well,
story.
yeah, well, the shortcomings are as a film. I couldn't care less how faithful it is to Homer's, Odyssey, Iliad, whatever the hell it's called, which I did do at school because in those days, schools, comprehensive schools in Scotland still did Latin, and I was rather good at Latin. So I
Yeah.
did a lot of Greco-Roman history, and I never really liked Homer or Catullus or Platypus or Platinum Card or whoever the rest of the Latin bunch were. I mean, I was good at Latin, but I didn't love it. It seemed like I've had the same feelings about Latin, or rather Greco-Roman history then, that I have about fantasy films now by Marvel Comics. It's all
They were they were
superheroes
the,
doing
they were
ridiculous
the
things.
Marvel comics of their time, of course. And
Exactamundo. So I don't mind about that. I judge it totally as a film because Blade Runner, for example, one of the best
mm,
films ever made by
mm,
Ridley Scott, is nothing like the Philip K. Dick book it's based on.
no,
So I couldn't care less. But as a film, I found it solid, well organized, good. But did it ever achieve liftoff towards greatness? I really don't think so. And I think the
what
story
stopped it
was
then,
so
Graham? What
simplistic
stopped it?
compared to the story was simplistic. At least Oppenheimer, which covered about 30 years of
Mm,
history or thereabouts, it had lots of different intricate plot lines and different things happening and complicated emotional relationships between characters who came and went. You couldn't boil Oppenheimer the film down to one sentence or maybe even five sentences. There was a hell lot going on. So whether Oppenheimer was truly a great drama, because remember that Nolan is essentially, I know Dunkirk's almost a drama, but he's essentially a genre filmmaker, although a really brilliant one. So in the Odyssey, the plot can be summed up in one sentence. Matt Damon goes to war, and then it takes him more than 10 years to come back, in which time he nearly loses all his crew, and
yeah.
it's all pretty horrific. That's it. That's that's the whole film. And the characters are either goodies or baddies, and there's very little in between. Which for the audience doesn't want anything else than that. That's perfectly fine. If you like Spider-Man, you might like the Odyssey. But as a full-blown drama, and until the last 45 minutes, which are better, when the plot is resolved at the end and there's a reveal about why Matt Damon's character has spent so much time getting home when he could have got home quicker. When that's revealed with the anti-war message,
Mm.
the film comes together. But it becomes a genre film again. It becomes the sort of thing that Nolan always does with action sequences that are well choreographed. it never really achieves that lift off into being intellectual. It's the work of a middlebrow director, not someone
So
like Tarkovsky or Fellini or even Martin Scorsese. It just isn't.
so are you saying the shortcoming is essentially a psychological one that actually there's plenty of action by Matt Damon, but we're not getting the full psychological picture of what was in fact a 20-year journey to
Yeah,
get back.
it's not the psychology's there. It's quite a psychological film, especially with Matt Damon's character, the main character. But
But
the problem is the plot's too streamlined and too thin, and there's nothing complicated about the plot. There's nothing to like make you think. It's a lightweight plot about a heavy subject. It's a very heavy film, a very serious film. There
mm,
was one half joke where I smiled. That was it, the whole film. It's a very serious and heavy film, but it's a very light plot. The first three quarters is basically Matt going from one disastrous situation with big monsters and giants and one-headed this and
mm.
gargoyles and sirens, and that's it. There's this. Well, back at home, his wife Penelope is in her palace, full of like 300 drunken, violent would-be suitors who couldn't care less about Matt Damon and
Well,
just
she
want to
keeps knitting.
get off with Anne Hathaway so they can become king. And her palace is a bit like a really bad Weatherspoons. It's not. It's like it's so
I
they're
didn't think
so
that was
badly
possible,
behaved. You
Graham.
almost feel
Tell me
like you want.
where's there a good Weatherspoons?
Well, yeah, but it's so badly behaved that palace when Matt's away fighting the war, then not coming back from the war. You almost feel like it's a good place to have a drink. It's pretty lively, pretty entertaining. But that's it. There's no story. This is and when Nolan is good at technical intricacies,
Yes.
he's good at flashing through time and going backwards and forwards. He's a very good structural director, but there's nothing below that. And when he tries to do anything poetic, it doesn't work. So there's quite a lot of scenes of Matt Damon walking along the beach on his own,
Yeah.
looking a bit forlorn with the water coming up.
Yeah.
That doesn't come across as a great moment of profound poetry. It comes across as Matt Damon walking alone on the beach. There's nothing more to that scene than that. And that's because Nolan is no poet. He's a British Spielberg.
That's quite a statement. I
Mm.
would say, Graham, that the best performance in the film is by a British actress, and who's only in the film for what, five 5 minutes, probably,
10 minutes, possibly.
possibly 10 minutes.
Mm.
And do you think that's a deliberate decision to have Circa, that character, just so briefly there? But might as well be like the cameo of the Cyclops. It's nothing more than that, and yet the weight of her performance is so remarkable that it kind of haunts you for the rest of the film. Just that one sequence with her.
Well, it's a one-tone film. It's about not dealing with emotional trauma. It's about keeping big emotions within yourself. So she's the one moment in the film where all emotion comes out. She's a very emotional actress, and what she thinks is written all over her face.
Yeah,
And she's very characterful and very colourful, and so she almost steals the film. It's not that Matt Damon's bad. I mean, at the end when he reveals his own horror at the things that him and his troops did in Troy, you almost feel for him, and it's a bit emotional,
mm,
and
mm.
it provokes something in you. So Matt's not a bad actor, but can you
No, no.
imagine? Can you imagine if Taxi Driver starred Matt Damon, Robert Pattinson, and Anne Hathaway? How
Wouldn't have
good
been
the
as
film would
effective.
have been.
Samantha,
It wouldn't have
Samantha,
been half
Samantha
the film.
Morton was the name I failed to mention. So
Samantha
forgive me for
Morton
that.
might have
Yeah,
worked in Taxi Driver, but I don't think the caliber of actors scarcely exist today who appeared in films like Taxi Driver. As soon as you've got a cast, as soon as you got when you've got two difficulties, you can't overcome them. So the script isn't interesting enough. It's too one note, and the actors, although the good actors, aren't quite good enough in general either. Those two things stop it being a great film. It's still a good film, and at the end, Matt Damon's sort of haunted look did sort of linger with me for a day, which is shows the film had some effect. But the message of the film was anti-war, and the message that Matt Damon's character brought back from the rape and pillage of Troy was
mm,
against war.
mm.
But at the same time, the final sequence of the film is him single-handedly killing more than 100 people in that terrible palace. that Anne Hathaway lives
Yes,
in,
and that
and
went
I thought
on and on
that
and on, that scene, on and on.
it was well directed. It was like a Tarantino
Yeah, but it was an
fight
anti-war
scene.
film, but he does that.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. He's not an intellectual, Nolan, although he's not a stupid man. And he should have thought, wait a minute, how can the message of the film be anti-war when I've just had Matt killing 100 people?
Would Christopher Eccleston have made a better character?
Possibly. He's a bit of a he's not a very warm actor, but he has got more depth and a bit more range to his personality when it comes to acting. So perhaps,
Well,
yeah.
but
So I didn't think the
Does
film was
Odysseus
perfectly
need to be
cast.
warm? Does he need to be warm?
You
Does
need
he?
to hint at warmth. And unless you're an out and out baddie like Robert Pattinson, who played the baddie very well,
Yes.
unless you're an out and out baddie, all characters, even the ones who are flawed,
Yeah.
have to have some warmth in there to get your sympathy, but also to
Yes.
get you invested in the character.
Fair
Any
point.
character
Fair
that
point.
you don't like
Yes.
at all is someone you can't watch.
Right. So that's ruling that out. Ruling Christopher Eccleston out. Okay. Yeah.
I think he could have done it, possibly. Yeah, I mean, I think there are some actors could have done a better job of it, but fundamentally the script wasn't quite good enough.
No.
The,
But
the 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 actual making of the film was good. It's a very well made film,
well,
and
he is a superb technical director,
mm,
absolutely,
mm,
and one who
mm.
actually he's not apparently hugely in favour of AI. That's not something he's wanting to embrace. Interestingly,
Well, there's still quite a lot of AI in that film, and quite a lot of times
or
when they were
CGI. Still, was it
battling,
CGI or was it AI?
I couldn't care less. I never liked CGI much either.
No. Okay.
Anything that ends with I tends to annoy me. But when they were dealing with massive cyclops and all sorts of monsters, they were clearly not. I would rather have someone in a costume that's
Yes.
done really well than some computer generated monster.
We are
I
going
just
back
can't
to
take it
Ben Hur
seriously.
there, Graham. Yes,
Exactly, exactly.
and
But one other thing I thought was that
maybe even
mm,
Gladiator. I mean, I don't know what technology was used for Gladiator, but somehow it's
Gladiator didn't use too much CGI.
so.
Gladiator is a vastly better film than the Odyssey,
Mm,
but the Odyssey is a harder film to make than Gladiator.
it is.
Gladiator is basically I Claudius with more action and younger, hotter actors. The Odyssey is a tricky film to make, so you got to give Nolan points even for attempt to make it, and
Yes.
then to make it without making it a disaster. It's not a disaster; is an achievement itself. But I
Mm,
do think that the music was too boring. The music was very generic Scandinavian synth with very little personality, and I think Nolan overdid the low key nature of the plot. If he'd had James Blake, the great British synth electronic soul pop act who wrings out the depth in every single line
yeah.
of every song he does. If
Yeah.
he'd done the soundtrack, especially in the first 3 quarters before the denouement, I think it would have been a more enjoyable film.
Mm.
It was. It's almost like he turned the volume down too much.
So not going to probably make your list of the best films of the year, Graham.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the rest. I mean,
Mm.
if I don't see lots of films that impress me, The Odyssey, because it was a good film, will end up somewhere on the list. I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll wait to see on that. Graham, you're having second thoughts on something, which you've been known to do before, but
Yeah.
maybe that's because you're expanding something rather than dismissing it. So, a second thought on Yard Act. That's the Leeds band's new album, their third album. You're going to need a little music, and I'm wondering whether you think you're going to need a little bit more music by Yard Act when you're now revising your thoughts on it.
No, no, I think it's a very good album. In
Mm.
some ways, it's definitely the best album. It's the most cohesive bunch of songs that are well written, that make a point, that have melody lines, that have good guitars, that are interesting. It's easily their best collection. But both the Overload, their debut album, and Where's
Yeah.
My Utopia got to number 2 in the charts.
Mm.
And You're Gonna Need a Little Music got to number 15. And since albums by non-generic R&B pop synthwave acts never hang around in the charts,
No.
modern stuff, you got
No.
to think 15's as high as it's going to get,
Yep.
which is frankly quite shocking when it's actually a really good album. So it's slightly worrying to me because I
Mm.
like Yard Act. I'm worried about their career.
I think that's an understandable worry, Graham, because if the question is how actually can they draw a larger audience, well, it's difficult to think of getting a larger audience than Leeds Millennium Square, and within what a year of that, albums only attracting top 15 position rather than number two position. Um, how
Yeah,
how a,
I
how
think
a band can gain attention now away from just the few female singer songwriter acts that seem to get so much attention now, as opposed to four northern blokes.
well, I think the problem's deeper than that. I think the problem is that the last British band who were interesting and melodic and good, whose first three albums were all totally different from each other, was the Beta Band. And how many hits did the Beta Band have when they
Pretty
were
well,
together
pretty well
20 years
nil.
ago?
Pretty well
Yeah.
nil.
So in Britain, it's all right if you're David Bowie. You can flip flop from style to style,
Yeah.
still have hits. Although David Bowie's a long time ago now. But a British indie band that's sort of like on the margins of the mainstream, there's no tradition of any British
No.
indie band on the margins changing their style radically, three albums on the trot,
Mm.
and being a big band. It just it never happens. It's a
No.
dangerous thing to do. So
I
I
suppose
simultaneously admire
Vampire Weekend in America changed their style for three successive albums.
that's true, but they were proper pop.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right though. You're right that's the exception. You're right. That's the only exception last 20 years.
Mm.
And Arctic Monkeys, okay, that's only the second exception in the last 20 years. So that's two exceptions in the last 20 years.
But it's rare. It is rare. That's the point. It is rare.
There's a
It
slight
used to be
difference.
that you'd expect
Yeah.
far greater transitions between our albums by bands, partly because the limitation punk bands wanted to explore much more than that. So how the Clash developed their music, how Elvis Costello developed their music, how the Police developed their music. We can see examples of how there was change, but more recently than that's not been the case.
Well, Costello undermined his own career by his constant changing of style.
That's
So
true.
once he'd
That's
hit
true.
that golden spot,
Yeah.
that sweet spot of sort of like new wave ABBA
Mm.
with Armed Forces,
Mm.
well, this year's model in Armed Forces, he
Yeah.
then went into sort of like new wave 60s soul influenced
Yeah. On Get
pop on
Happy.
Get
Mm.
Happy.
Mm.
Then he did Trust, which was all over the shop. Then he did Almost Blue, a country album.
Yes.
Then he
Covers
did
them. Yeah.
Imperial Bedroom, where he got all sort of grandiose and orchestral a bit. Then he did Punch the Clock, which is all blatant 80s pop with an 80s pop sound. Then
Mm.
he went sort of Americana on King America. And
Mm.
quite frankly, his mainstream career in Britain never come from that. He was never
No,
a mainstream hit
that's
making act
true.
ever again.
Yeah,
So,
Punch the Clock was a really commercial record, but he didn't like
mm, well,
its
the fans
commercial
didn't like it
arrangements.
either.
No, and the fans didn't
The,
like it
the,
either.
the,
But no,
the
Langer and
danger in
Winstanley's
changing
work
if
on
you're
it,
not really
they didn't
big,
like. No,
yeah, is you're
absolutely.
undermining your own fan base.
But
So I
part of
hope
it,
I'm wrong about Yard
that,
Act. I hope I'm
but,
wrong.
but part of the thing is that Costello had, he was able to do that without fear of record companies going, no, 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 which is
Well,
likely to
it's more
happen
than
with the
that.
Yard Act. There must be the risk of
Costello
the
was just
Yard Act getting that
yeah,
treatment.
yeah, but Costello had top 10 pop hits
Yes,
before he went a bit wayward.
true, true.
Yard Act, even at their peak in the last 5 years, have never been as big as Elvis Costello was. Also,
No,
Costello remained hugely popular in America, so he could sustain British decline. But bands like Yard Act or
can't.
Fontaine's DC
They
or
can't.
Beta Band, it can't sustain that sort of decline because they've never achieved those peaks in the first place,
Yeah, absolutely.
commercially speaking.
Well,
So I'm
you and I
slightly
have.
worried. I would also say there's something very smart arse about Yard Act. I mean, James Smith, as well as having writing great lyrics and being a great, he's not quite a singer, not quite spoken word,
Mm,
full of character and life, really impressive.
mm,
But he's got that Leeds self-deprecating,
yeah,
putting things down aspect. So the album feels a bit like as sort of like clever clogs, wittily negative as classic era Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
perish the thought. Even
And
someone.
Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention didn't have any pop hits either.
I mean, there's surely a role for a smart ass. I mean, even someone like Scritti Green was pretty much a smart ass in a very velvety voiced, synthfully
Oh
soulful
yeah.
way. There's always
Mm,
surely there's always
mm.
a role for a smart ass. I mean, even I don't know. Let's think. Well, you could argue that Arab Strap, he's a bit of a smart ass,
Well, Arab Strap never had any hits either.
no.
Yeah, yeah, you are right, but I'm talking about being smart ass and getting away with it, i.e., being really popular.
Okay,
And
so
so my
who's a
worry with
smart
Yard
ass
Act
who
is
gets
that they
away with
might.
it? Who's a smart ass who gets away with it?
Well, Elvis Costello did for a while.
Yeah,
Costello, all his great lyrics in 78, 79, 80 were
yeah.
totally smart arse. And he got away with it and had big pop hits and was really popular.
Mm.
So it is pulp for 3 years
Yes, that's a good
were
call.
smart arse and
That's
got
a
away
good
with it and
call.
had huge hits.
And Pete Doherty, I would say he's a smart ass who sort of didn't get away
Mm.
with it, but sort of got away with it, and then came back for
So it
more.
is possible, and Yard
Mm.
Act have the talent to do that.
Mm.
But I think changing styles 3 times in 5 years
Yeah,
possibly isn't a great career move. But
no,
I hope to be proved entirely wrong because I like Yard Act.
absolutely. Now, Graham, I think we touched on there was a new outdoor venue in Wakefield, and I was scratching around trying to remember what it was. I'm very glad that you're going to reveal to our listeners exactly what Wakefield's new outdoor venue is.
Well, yeah, I mean, whilst Halifax Peace Hall's been taking all the kudos and getting all the big names for the last 4 or 5 years, and
Incidentally, stop
Scarborough's
for a
open air
second.
theatre
Stop
is
for a
now.
second. Andy
Yeah.
Burnham has just highlighted what a
Mm.
wonderful place Halifax Peace Hall is, and why don't more people know about it? Fascinating that the Prime Minister's done that. I think it's all part of let's big up the North.
It's almost like he is from the north,
He's,
bizarrely. Yeah.
I
But
think he was comparing it with gorgeous Italian architecture that's far better known.
yeah, well, yeah, Halifax is a nice place, and the area
Mm.
around the Peace Hall has come alive with bars and restaurants and cafes.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. Mm.
more power to the elbow of
So
Halifax. But
Wakefield is trying to go through the same
Wakefield's a harder.
process.
Wakefield's a bit of a harder task. It's got
Yes.
the Hepworth, brilliant art museum,
Yeah.
art gallery, but that's almost on the outskirts of the town centre. It's got the sculpture park, which is way outside
Yeah.
Wakefield, but it now has Tile Yard North. Tile Yard North is the
Tile
outdoor
Yard
venue,
North.
which
Yes.
I'm led to believe is like a mini version of the Halifax Peace Hall, although not architecturally as spectacular. And they have got a reasonable lineup of gigs in August. They got the Stranglers and the Buzzcocks,
Yeah.
although I'm not sure there's many original members left there. They got Sophie Alice Bextor, almost inevitably. Scouting for Girls, the Fratellis. So, they're putting on reasonable standard lineups in Wakefield. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, I mean, the Wakefield Theatre Royal puts on John Gobber plays and various other things go on there, so that, that sort of fights its corner. But I think it's good to have a new venue. So this is the Tile Yard, yes,
Yeah, one word, Tile Yard North,
Tile Yard North.
which
Okay,
suggests there must be a Tile Yard South, but I
it's
don't know
also
anything
like
about that.
number 10 North. Of course,
Yeah,
Andy
yeah,
Burnham
yeah, yeah.
has created.
Well,
So
that's
that's
going to turn out to be a ridiculous gimmick, I suggest.
I don't know how you can be so cynical about
And
that, Graham.
Wakefield has another venue which is used regularly. It's called Wakefield Exchange,
Correct.
and it has smaller indie gigs,
It does.
stand-up comedy,
Yeah.
but also has roller skating. So, uh, we're not going to be reviewing roller skating anytime soon, Charles, are we?
Oh, exactly.
I don't think.
We're not. We're not indeed. Absolutely not. So, Graham, I want to discuss the contrasting two musicals. One of which I have seen, one of which I was scheduled to see, but
Hmm.
the tour has now been cancelled. So, the one that I did see was, of course, the Johnny Cash musical, as it's called. And more truthfully, the Ballad of Johnny and June, as the title suggests. It's as much the story, two musicals, contrasting stories behind them. First of which, the Ballad of Johnny and June, which has been touring around Britain, and this is the story of it's called the Johnny Cash musical, but it's as much about June Carter Cash's wife. The
That's
story
a
is
safe
taken,
bet, Charles. Safe bet because it's about Johnny Cash, who's
yeah,
never been bigger.
and the story is
And
taken,
secondly, it's got a female aspect, so it means that your partner or wife or whoever
yeah,
can come along.
and it's
It isn't just Johnny Cash.
actually, and it's as much her story as his. It's equally told.
Exactly.
The reason
Mm.
behind that is that the script, well, that's by Des McAnuff, who of course also made the Jersey Boys musical. The significance of which is that the son, John Carter Cash, has drawn the story together, from which Des McAnuff then put the musical together. And this is from the biographies he did, separate biographies, one about his mother and one about his father. And so it brings
Excellent.
both their
So
stories
is it
together.
good, Charles?
It
Is
is
it good?
good. First of all, I
Mm,
mean, obviously, it goes without saying, you've got a great set list of songs, 33 songs that are drawn upon, but it's also a good musical because it doesn't sanitize anything. You know, it shows
mm,
Johnny
mm,
to be
mm.
the man in black, but also the sort of man in black moods, the man
Uh,
who drank too much, and it also shows that she herself, June, became in later life. She sort of took pills in order to, I think, for sort of pains in the body, etc., and and became somewhat hooked on those. That's a suggestion from
I thought it was to
Johnny
keep him
Cash.
company.
Well, maybe it was that as well. But of course, it is a love story. It's a damaged love story, but it is a love story.
So
I thought it.
is it rousing towards the end? Because I can't imagine how it would end positively,
Well,
even though
actually,
I like
I mean
Johnny
that
Cash and
that's
the
interesting.
songs.
I mean, okay, so is there a bit of a cheat code that happens at the end because they
Mm,
go back to the biggest hits again at the end,
mm.
but I would say that actually no, it doesn't do that. It's truthful in the way that the song "Hurt" takes on huge significance within it.
Oh, is that the end? Is Hurt towards the end?
It's the big moment really of what
Oh,
in
I
the late
suppose it had to
career.
be. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
late
yeah.
career where again he's gone back to drinking and whatever, and so the consequence of which, and she dies first. He doesn't actually die that long after, about 4 months after her,
Mm.
but it finishes by having a resume of the big hits again. But I think that's one of the things I liked about the film is it is ballads quite often aren't happy songs ballads, are they? Let's face it, there's
Mm,
often
mm,
ballads
mm.
about love going wrong or unrequited or whatever. I think that's a
Also,
deliberate it's a
Johnny
deliberate
Cash
choice.
was never cheesy or overly sentimental.
No, and it's
Even in
not.
his happier moments, there was a
Yeah,
little bit of edge to Johnny Cash.
absolutely, and it's played that way as well. Christopher Ryan Grant, who plays him, an American who's come over to Britain to do the role. And if I got the name wrong, forgive me. But he's played it in America and has come over especially to do the tour over here,
Oh
and he's
wow.
done it with Christina Bianco, who has already over here. She lives over here now, and she's again a
Yeah.
New York actress, but has lived over here for quite some time now.
Mm.
And she did the Rise and Fall of Little Voice at York Theatre Royal and on
Mm.
a tour. So she's got
So this
a
has got
passion for.
pedigree. This is a musical with real pedigree.
Absolutely. And Des McAnuff has got real pedigree from Jersey
Mm,
Boys as
mm,
well.
mm.
So I thought it was a really, really strong musical. Now, the
Yeah.
other
How
one,
about Trainspotting the musical?
right, here's
What's
now
happened to that?
okay. So as soon as people read the words Trainspotting the musical, I think people are
Mm,
thinking, you what? Trainspotting as a musical? So
mm.
it's run in London. It's run with in London with a cast of 30.
Wow, that's a big number of people to pay.
Right. So when you're then going to take that on tour, I think alarm bells start ringing.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
not an
yeah.
opera company. This is not an opera company. This is a theatre company that's doing that. So it's
It
going to
sounds a bit
continue.
like the musical theatre version of ELP on tour across America in
Yeah,
1976.
yeah. So it's going to continue its run in London Theatre Royal Haymarket from memory. This is all
Mm,
off the top of my head, but I think that's where it's been playing. That will continue to September the 5th. But they made the announcement the whole tour is not going to
mm,
happen. Now,
mm,
I think
mm.
in terms of ticket sales were poor. So even in Edinburgh, where the tour was going to open, I think at the Playhouse in
Yeah,
October, the sales were on
Playhouse is big.
19% the sales were on, even in Edinburgh, where Trainspotting is set. It's also
19%.
set,
So it holds about 3,000.
yeah,
So a fifth of 3,000, what's that, about 500 or something?
so it's
I don't
struggling.
know.
It's struggling.
Yeah.
And in York, the
Yeah, but
sales,
I could
like
have
everywhere
predicted
else,
that
the York
because
sales weren't good.
we mentioned Trainspotting recently when I was
Yeah,
talking about the films Trainspotting, Pulp
yeah,
Fiction, and
yeah,
Buffalo Soldiers. And I
yeah.
was saying that these films now seem shocking
Mm,
because they're films about people who are being irresponsible to have fun, who don't feel anything bad about taking drugs. And
no.
these days, that doesn't play to anybody. Even hipsters think that's a bit weird.
I mean, I do wonder why this, because Irvin Welsh was heavily involved in this. He has written songs
Mm,
with
mm,
Stephen McGuinness. I think that's the name off the top of the head, but I think that's right. And he said the quote in advance from Irvin Welsh was he thought this was the best iteration yet of Trainspotting. We're talking about something that's been, well, it was his debut novel of Irvin Welsh. There was a film that Danny Boyle made from that. There was then the subsequent film that when they get back together again. There's also been a play version. So suddenly it's a musical. And his quote was he felt it was going to be the best iteration of it. Now, I think you still wonder, well, why you know, so it's set when it was originally set, although technically, well, I think the book came out in the 80s and it was actually the film came out in the 90s,
No,
didn't it?
I think it came out in the early 90s. I could be wrong, but I think it
Yeah.
was early 90s. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's anyway, the musical continues to be set then. No update on that. So I'm thinking, well, why do you want to revisit this? What is this going to show as a musical that it wasn't showing in any other form? I think it's one of those ones. I just thought it had red lights written all over it before it even was
Here's the
cancelled.
problem. The film soundtrack defined a generation. The generation of Britpop meets rave culture and house music came together brilliantly on the soundtrack to the film, which made that brilliant soundtrack album, which contained tracks that were new tracks as well as classic
Mm.
tracks. It brought that whole rock dance culture together, and
Yes,
it
it did.
sold loads, the
Mm.
Trainspotting soundtrack album.
Mm.
Absolute classic. And it was a really positive album to listen to. It still sounds exciting now, but the film's message is basically taking drugs is a lot of fun, but if you do it for too long, you're going to end up in trouble.
And
So you
eventually you're
have
going
to
to
get a
need,
bit
and
clean,
eventually you're going to need
which
to
is
choose
no,
life, which isn't drugs.
it's not it's not the idea that you can build a musical round. I don't
No.
think.
So what they've done for the musical is they've used some of the songs that were in the soundtrack, but then also on top of
Mm,
that, Welsh and McGuinness have written new songs for it. And apparently the new songs were disappointing according to reviews. The Guardian gave it only a 1 star review, and
mm.
other reviews were
Yeah, but you got to
pretty
remember the
dismissive as well.
Guardian. If you get the Guardian magazine on Saturday, the way
Yes,
that Guardian thinks, the culture of the Guardian, the mindset of the
yeah.
Guardian is all current mindset culture, which
Mm-hmm.
frowns upon. It doesn't mind people writing books after they've been drug addicts and cleaned their act up, especially
Mm-hmm.
if they used to be a writer for the Guardian themselves. They love that. But
Mm.
they're no longer rock and roll. The Guardian is not a rock and roll newspaper. Its writers aren't rock and roll, and its magazines aren't rock and roll. It's rock and roll is dead. The spirit of rock and roll doesn't exist in the mainstream. The Guardian's totally mainstream. And so the Guardian was never going to like Trainspot musical because it's never going to support something which in any way makes drug taking look good. But that's the main theme to the film.
The quote from on the he went on to BBC Radio 4, Irving Welsh, when they hadn't actually announced the decision that day. They were about to make a decision, and he talked to BBC Radio 4's Today program, and he was saying that he's used to the fact that people don't like his stuff. That's usually the reaction that that
Mm.
he tends to draw criticism for whatever he does. And so, so that was his reaction to how people had reacted in the early reviews.
Yeah.
But subsequently that day, the decision was made not to go ahead with it. Um,
Mm, mm.
I just think how let's put this question forward. How could you present Trainspotting in 2026, 30 years later, and have validity in doing that?
You have to rebrand it as the soundtrack of a generation and shift it towards Britpop, which was a very positive movement at a
Mm-hmm.
time when politics was getting briefly positive and the Cold War ended. You need to shift it towards the soundtrack of a generation and downplay the drug aspect almost completely. Have it
So
in passing. You have to
yeah,
refocus the focus of the book. Well, the film's different than the book anyway, so you
yes.
had to refocus it on something that wasn't the film
So,
really.
or
You
did it
could
need to
still do
did it
it, but
need
it'd
to
be
bring
tricky.
something? So it needed to bring something new out? But could that be? Would it be more negative or more positive? Which would it
They'd
be?
have to make it more positive. They'd have
Mm.
to have Ewan McGregor's character falling in love somewhere along the line in a believable fashion for it to have worked.
I just think it's cheating it. I don't see the point in doing it. I mean, you get why Oasis make a comeback.
Oh, by the way, Anthony, our producer, just like sent a message
Oh
saying
yeah,
that maybe make it an opera. It would work as an opera because
who
opera
was he
like tragedy.
suggesting? Who
So
was
you
he
could make
suggesting?
Trainspotting a tragedy.
Yeah, who did he suggest, Anthony? And there was a message saying it was a name he came up with. Did you see
I
that?
didn't recognize it. I'm not a
Maybe
huge
Anthony,
opera buff.
write that again for us, and we'll check what name you were suggesting. Yeah, well,
Who
okay.
would
I mean,
recognize his name anyway?
you could play Train Spotting the Opera. I think it's probably got a whole lot more potential. Yeah,
Well,
I
because you
like.
make it tragic and over the
Yeah,
top. It worked.
yeah.
Mark Anthony
Mark
Burnage.
Anthony Turnage. Right.
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
There we go. So
mm.
there's a possibility. I just think it's I was curious to see it, and I'm very disappointed I'm not going to get the chance to see
Burnage.
it because it would have been interesting to see. But it
Well,
sounded
no,
like it,
I'm not, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of musicals full stop, but I never thought Trainspotting was going to work.
no. I mean,
I,
turning everything into a
yeah.
musical is not the answer.
Well, it is a lot of time. There's a lot of successful musicals which
But
make a
it's
lot of money,
not. It's
and
not the only answer. Why is everything
yeah,
get
but
turned into musical?
they've done
All
the
these
film,
films get
they've
turned into
done the
musicals.
books, they've done the play.
Yeah,
All they've left to do is a musical because musical makes if you make a long running musical which can run for 20 years, 25
yeah,
years, there's
yeah,
an
yeah,
awful lot
yeah.
of money in that. So if Trainspotting musical had taken off, that's the whole bunch of them, including everyone
Can
Welsh,
you really
making a
see
lot of
that doing
money for a
20,
lot of
20
years.
years of that musical? Really? It was of its time. That was the point of the thing. It was of its
Yeah,
time.
well, everything's of its time, Charles, but if you're smart or if the time was quite shallow or you're lucky, you can make it come alive. Like no
What?
one gave a two hoots about the Four Seasons of Frankie Valli
No,
before the Jersey Boys musical. I'm telling you, they weren't the biggest band on the planet. There's
no, they
very
weren't.
few books about blah 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 blah. But because the musical had lots of poppy, upbeat, classic pop songs, and it was effervescent and life affirming and all that sort of stuff, which traditionally musical theatre audiences love, it's been a huge hit. So it's not that it was of its time. It's that the film is the most famous part of it, and the
Yeah,
film is mainly about drugs.
yeah.
And drugs are definitely not of this time.
No, drugs. If the drugs don't work, pull the musical. Simple as that.
That's exactly what happened, Charles. Good line.
So there we go. Then we will say that Trainspotting got derailed before it went on tour. And on one level, it's disappointing because I would have been curious to see it, but on the other,
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub production.